When I was younger, I would always play a game where someone was a king and someone was a rascal. It went something like, I'm the king and you're the dirty rascal. This brings me to my topic of discussion, Saul Alinsky. This brings me to my topic of discussion because Saul Alinsky gave a voice to the minority. He gave them a voice in three specific ways that I'll be talking about in this speech today. One being the creation of the Industrial Areas Foundation, two being the involvement in the Chicano movement, and three, the production of a book for future community organizers like himself. So starting off on a rascal level, in the proverbial sense, let's talk about the IAF. So for starters, the IAF started off as the Back of the Yards Neighborhood Council, otherwise known as the BYNC. The official website of the BYNC states that it started off in an area near Chicago, and it was in an area locally known as the Union Stockyards. This area was divided ethnically and culturally. Specifics that we can see, or specific groups that we can see in this, or that we could have seen in this area, are the Poles, the Czechs, and the Slavics. Then, after a while, the Depression hit, and this area these enclaves could not stay put together or stay divided much longer. Joseph Megan, an important local, actually wanted to work together with Saul to actually find a solution to actually improve their quality of life. Because as we all know, the Great Depression actually decreased the quality of life for many people in the nation. So Saul and Joseph thought, and they came to the conclusion that they needed a type of collaboration between all these ethnic groups. So the need for change was there because of the Depression, and this actually united all of these ethnic groups together. And one of these changes that we saw are a school lunch program. So basically, the nation actually adopted that as well, and we see lunches in schools every day now. So moving on historically, we see that Saul died in 1972, and an article from the Industrial Areas Foundation states that Richard Herman actually established the modern IAF afterwards, and some accomplishments that we see with the IAF are the professionalization of the role of organizer. We see some leadership training within the IAF, and also we see some policies within the IAF that actually unite different people and different groups. So moving on to the intermediary between the rascal and the king, and this in the proverbial sense, we would see that this is actually Saul's involvement within the Chicano movement. A book by Francisco Arturo Rosales introduces the fact that Caesar and Alinsky actually weren't that far apart in terms of teaching and student. So now we see that Caesar received some training from the CSR, which was a branch from the CSO, which was a branch from the IAF, which, as we know, was founded by Alinsky. Another book by someone named Humberto Garza says that the organization, or says that Saul was actually discouraged when Caesar came up to him and asked, hey, let's get involved in this actual movement, because Saul actually perceived some obstacles that could get in the way of this movement, such as a funding deficit, the fact that the community that they were going to be affecting was nomadic, and three, a law barrier actually preventing the farmers from reaping the benefits that Caesar wanted to actually get them. Okay, so further on this point, Saul actually did start helping out, and he suggested that the CPO, a big organization in the Chicano movement, change their name from the community political organization to the community service organization, because no one wanted to give their money to a community political organization. So that actually changed the funding up a little bit, and they could get a little bit more money from that. And then also, Alinsky introduced Fred Ross to the movement, and Fred Ross was a senior advisee to the important people of the movement. So basically, he was like the organizer of the organizers. So now moving on to the actual king status that Saul had within the community organization area of expertise, we see from an infed.org article that Alinsky actually had a lot of accomplishments within different areas, such as the Chicano movement, the steelworkers of Pittsburgh, and Indians in Canada. So actually, Alinsky became reputable, and therefore he was able to produce a book for future community organizers. this book called Rules for Radicals presented 13 rules. These 13 rules being that power was what people perceived you to have. 2 being not to go outside of the expertise of the people that you know. 3 is to be confounding to the enemy. And 4 is make the enemy play by their own rule book. 5 is ridicule, being the main power source of mankind. 6 being that a good tactic is one that the people in your organization actually enjoy. 7 being a tactic that goes on too long is a bad tactic. 8 saying that keeping pressure is actually a good thing in the situation. 9 being that the threat is more scary than the actual reality of the situation. 10 being keeping the enemy off balance. 11 saying pushing a negative enough actually turns a negative into a positive. 12 being having an alternative to the situation that you're going against, and picking one major person from the opposing side to basically dehumanize and actually target to prolong your cause. So in conclusion, we see that Saul Alinsky actually did help within this area of giving the minority a voice within the 3 specific reasons of creating industrial areas foundation, assisting in the Chicano movement, the production of a book for future community organizers, so that basically the brass school can actually turn into the king of the castle.